Sounds like crap. Oh, all right. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Time and Place, the gospel conversation show where we discuss faith on the fringes and do our best to apply God's word to God's world. I'm Solomon. This is Julian. And today we're talking about Donda by Kanye West. But first, Julian, what the heck is going on in the world today?
Well, you would have thought the world had ended. You would have thought this was the reaction that you would get for the situation in Afghanistan. But no, people were not freaking out over that. They're freaking out over the new Texas abortion law, where it's essentially illegal to abort after 6 weeks.
Man, so it's only in Texas.
Only in Texas.
Right. Okay.
And the entire nation is enraged over that.
So this was coming down the pike, and then the Supreme Court just didn't stop it, basically.
Yeah, the ACLU had petitioned them to get them to put a stop on it, and the Supreme Court just kind of let it slide. It was actually a 4-5 split.
Yeah.
So
well, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as conservatives and liberals on the court, right?
So, yeah, it barely got through with that, but it stuck through.
Yeah, I know. I saw some headlines that were like, abortion clinics forced to turn people away because of new law. I'm like, great. This is good news. Just saying this is like it's an automatic bad news thing.
Oh yeah, we've lost a human right according to the mainstream media.
Yeah, it's so weird, that rights thing, man. It's so like I was listening to Michael Shermer on Megyn Kelly podcast today, and he's talking about rights and like, oh, we have these rights, and people think they have a right to stuff and all these things, and he's talking about rights, and there is this idea out there that these things called rights are just kind of made up and given out, and because they can't be from God, it can't be endowed by our Creator, right? by nature, and nature's God, and that's the best they can do is say nature, like laws of nature, right? But they also want to change our nature, right? And so these rights can evolve and change and be different and stuff. Yeah.
As much as we need them to at the time.
Yeah.
I like the language around it too, because I've noticed this with abortions and stuff, how they kind of sterilize the language. So I was looking at this NPR article, and it was saying that it bans abortions as soon as cardiac activity is detectable. So rather than heartbeat, you normally say a heartbeat. It's cardiac activity.
Yeah, the heartbeat bill or whatever, the whole thing. Yeah, it's weird because most women don't know they're pregnant by 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
That's the big claim is like, well, it can't be that because the women don't even know they're pregnant. It's like, yeah, that's when most abortion. When they say cluster of cells, when they say just a globule or whatever, that's never when an abortion happens.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like they say, the woman doesn't know she's pregnant yet until there's a heartbeat, usually about around 5 weeks. And so, yeah, it's like, so something like this, and it's kind of weird. It's like a hard line between like the incrementalist approach versus the complete abolitionist approach,
right?
Which is like, okay, if this, and I've never really heard like what Jeff Durbin says about this, as far as like, wouldn't that be good if less babies were aborted than, no holds barred, like everything just totally going. I would think his answer is no or something.
Well,
we can't settle. It's about we can't settle. It has to be complete abolition, which I understand. But I think, 5 babies dying instead of 10 is good. Like it's a good step forward, and we will. I think we can still get there, but to not see this as like a win at all, or like a move in the right direction at all, or to be dissatisfied with this, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird place to be. I don't know if he is, but it's just
the way I've understood kind of him and Apology on their stance is they're grateful for any incremental steps you can get, but they don't want to work for incrementalism. Right. So the goal is abolition, but we'll take what we can get when incrementalism does come into effect.
So on the other side of the kind of thinking, is that maybe some of the intention behind something like defund the police? Whereas like that's the full on thing, but they don't mean defund the police, they'll accept reforming the police because that's more realistic.
Well, I think it depends who you talk to, because like there's some segments that say like, well, we want to reform, which is not something anybody would be opposed to, right? Like that's pretty mainstream thinking. But then there's others who are like, well, the system of policing and jail is racist, so we have to destroy it completely.
Yeah.
So it just depends who you're talking to, like what camp.
Yeah, I mean that might be some people's pro-life argument of like, yeah, we want pro-life, and then stricter regulations on abortion clinics comes around. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great, and it's like, well, no, that's not great. That's not enough. In that, but it seems to be that like defund the police. Oh well, we can't do that. But we'll reform. Okay, that's good. It seems to be like these half measures. You're claiming the full extreme and then settling for
whatever
halfway there or something. Yeah.
I had thought, because I knew it was harder to get an abortion here. I know there's still one clinic, and I don't know if it's going to stay open now, but I know exactly where it is. I pass it from time to time. But it's like the only Planned Parenthood I've ever seen in town. And I guess, I don't know, I'll drive by and see if it's still open after this.
Yeah, there's one on, what's it called? Nacoparan, like right there.
Okay.
Yeah, like by Firestone. And there's actually a church, or like some kind of like, I think it is a church right next to it. It's like on a little strip. Yeah. Like, wow, I wonder what that's
right.
I wonder what that's going on. If there's any.
I wonder if they just pretend like it's not there, if they actually do anything about it.
I don't know. That'd be interesting. I never see anybody out there trying to prevent people to go in or whatever, but oh well.
Abortion is one of those weird things where like everybody knows what it is. Everybody's like aware of what it is. There's not really any illusions. Even the people who talk about clumps of cells or whatever, like that's kind of passe. We all know what's going on. But for some reason, still, like you don't want to step on toes about it. Like, well, we don't want to offend them. Which I don't understand.
Yeah, it's the undue burden of the mother. She should never be put out. She should never be in any sort of difficult situation. So that's where this right comes from. It's just created basically. Women's health issue, but then what's a woman? They make this whole thing of like women's rights, women's health, equality, feminism, everything, women's healthcare, everything. They can't even define what a woman is. Don't you mean birthing person? Shouldn't you say birthing person rights? It doesn't roll the tongue. It's not as it's like they shoot themselves in the foot with these stupid vocabulary. They're trying to change all the words and change all the meaning of everything, and they can't even define a woman. But these are women's rights. It's just complete insanity. It's just complete nonsense.
Well, that's why they have that split now. There's like what they call TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists.
Yeah.
So like they buy into all the feminism stuff, but they don't buy the trans stuff. So there's like those people are ostracized too. Like they're not progressive enough.
Yeah. And in feminists giving up or denying and decrying one of the most unique forms of femininity that defines femininity, having children, giving birth to children, getting pregnant. I mean, they're just denying that. So it's like, what is feminine? What does it mean to be feminine? Nothing. It means to be a man.
Right. Well, that's what they want. So that's what they want in the end.
They want no genders.
Yes.
It's not empowerment of the female gender, of the feminine, whatever, because they're not promoting anything feminine.
Right.
It's all just like, we want to do everything a man can do. And you see the headlines too of like, okay, well, how about a man has to start paying child support as soon as it's conceived? It's like, yeah, that'd be great. Sure.
There's a name for that.
Let's make it illegal for the man to leave. Okay.
We're good with
they're
that.
Like, you trying to make some kind of point? Like, yeah.
Well, they're slowly inventing marriage. Like they're reverse engineering marriage.
Right. We're going to force you. Yeah, man.
I was talking about that with someone today. He was like, well, do you support child support from the moment of conception if you think life starts at conception? I was like, well, I support marriage from the moment of conception more than anything. But I guess that, and then the funny thing was that he was like, oh, well, that's insane. You can't just have people get married if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Like that's the normal function is insane. This other stuff totally makes sense.
What I've heard too is weird is people are saying this is going to disproportionately affect Black and brown people. and with poor minorities and everything. It's like, wait a second. You're saying we need black and brown people to keep having abortions?
Yes.
Like you're saying, wait, hang on. Who's gonna kill all the black and brown babies?
Yes.
How about nobody? How about we let them live? No. This is gonna no. These poor black and Mexican and minority women need to have abortions. They need to get their abortions. It's like, what are you really saying there? What are you really saying? You're upset that this is going to disproportionately affect. This is going to disproportionately leave too many black and brown people alive.
Yes, alive.
That's what you're saying. That's literally what they're saying, and that's a problem because we need to have black and brown people having abortions. The women to have abortion. We don't want them to have their babies.
Right.
See, and this is going to affect them. So they need to get their abortions. I was like, what are you saying? This is insane. It's just that nonsense, that complete contradicting of their own like woke, supposedly woke progressive mindset. They're actively wanting to kill black and brown babies.
Well, that's baked into the fabric of Planned Parenthood. You can't escape the reality of like its racist roots.
Yeah, she's succeeding. Margaret Sanger's like,
yes,
doing a cartwheel in the grave.
In hell.
She's loving it. Yeah. She's loving this. It's the elimination of the human weeds.
Right. Said. Exactly what she wanted.
It's eugenics. I mean, just perfect.
Well,
I don't people are upset that it's not being carried out. It's so insane.
I think I sent you guys a tweet today. I don't know if I did or not, but one of the guys was talking about how most children with Down syndrome can't be, or most fetuses with Down syndrome can't be screened before 6 weeks, and now we're gonna have an explosion of people with Down syndrome. Like, it's just, I know, we can't kill them. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, it's like, how many Down syndrome people we're gonna get because of this? We're gonna be infested with a bunch of Down syndrome.
That's the language.
That's literally what they're saying. And like, wow. I mean, anybody. Oh my god, dude, it's so insane. Like, it's just so, like, can you not hear the culture of death in your voice? Right? Can you not hear this like moral bankruptcy of eugenics and superiority of some human beings over others? You not hear that? Like, it's insane. We need the Down syndrome babies to keep dying and being killed, and the black and brown people. This is going to disproportionately affect them. How are people going to kill their Down syndrome babies if they can't? It's just.
It reminded me of that article that you. Article from, was it? I forget what it was, from the Atlantic. When you talked about it a couple of months ago.
Yeah. But they were like eliminating the Down syndrome problem in Denmark, basically. Like, we've cured Down syndrome by killing them all. And it's like, wow, okay, that's final solution, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just it's insane. Like, it's just insane. This is the party, or the party of science and the side of science, right? And okay, let's do a science experiment. What kind of living being is this? A human being. It has its own DNA. It's got its own fingerprints. It's got a heartbeat. And it feels pain. Like, what are you talking about? And that's also something Michael Shermer said. We can come to these moral conclusions scientifically because they can't really feel pain at this certain stage, and so it's okay to kill them because of pain. It's like, well, hang on, where did you get that standard from? Of like being able to feel pain, we can kill somebody. Like, well, they can't feel it, so it's like, you can kill somebody as long as they don't feel it.
Right?
Is that what you're saying? Scientifically, that's how you come to moral conclusions. Scientifically, it's kind of weird. But
the other one I heard before, and I don't know if this argument ever picked up steam because it's stupid, but the argument was like, well, they're human, yes, but they're not a person yet. They haven't been given personhood, which is like, so that's like straight 1800s. Like, that's not, you're 3/4 of a person. You're not a real person.
Well, you know what? I actually just read about that in Fault Lines by Vodi Bakum. Really, really great book. The Social Justice Movement and Evangelicalism's Looming Catastrophe.
Real positive outlook.
Yeah, well, he's saying like there's going to be a rift, right? And some are going to be standing here and some are going to be standing there. Definitely. Where are you standing right now? Because it's fault lines are showing, basically. Yeah, it's really good. But he talks about that. He talks about that 3/5 compromise and how it's not what you said is wrong.
Oh, okay. Enlighten
me mansplain to you.
They white-splain to me, the
white
brown man.
to you, to the brown man about 3/5 compromise. Yeah, because he's talking about how that doesn't. Everybody says that. Oh, 3/5 a person, 3/5 of a person. You were counted as 3/5 of a person, but when you read the actual thing, it's not. That's not what it says, and it's talking about representation of the vote. Okay, so if you are not a fan of web searches, no need to worry. Reading the text of the Constitution will dispel this myth. Ironically, Jamar Tisby, Morrison, and Hill cite the amendment. Again, one need not be a constitutional scholar in order to see through this myth that people say, oh, they counted you as 3/5 of a person. They didn't even say you were a person, right? That's something I thought too until Bodhi Baucham explained to me in this book. And hang on, look, don't worry. Bodhi Baucham's black. So I'm decentering my whiteness and listening to the black voices.
Not only is he black, he lives in Africa. So
yeah, man.
Extra credit black.
Straight from Zambia. I'm going to decenter myself, my white self, and hear black voices. So this is a quote from the Constitution. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed. 3/5 of all other persons. He says, dear reader, do you not catch that last phrase? 3/5 of all other persons. No mention of the word slave, no statement that slaves were 3/5 of a person. In fact, the statement affirms the personhood of those to whom it refers, while allowing for only 3/5 of those persons to be included for the purpose of apportioning taxes and representatives. So it was 3/5 of the whole voting body, not 3/5 of each person or lack of person, 3/5 of all other persons. So it's the group, not the individual, basically. 3/5 of all other persons. So they are counted as a person. But as a whole, their voting block is going to be 3/5 of that whole voting block, basically. So they're not saying they're 3/5 of a person.
I would assume that was a measure to keep slave states from overrunning free states just by number.
Because all of a sudden there's population change. Yeah, you got this massive population change in voting representation. It's like, well, hang on a second. We can't. That's crazy. We can't just have automatically a majority in one side of the country. But yeah, that was just one of those. But I mean, there is a sense of like, well, they're not really a person, and they did do that with black people. They did say they're not evolved. They did say the 3/5 compromise didn't allude to the lack of personhood, but they were seen as less than, as not really men, basically. You know, in that sense of like owning property and being free and being, you know, They thought they could not be educated. They thought they could not, do it, which ironically is being said today by a lot of white people, about black people, of like, well, they just can't because of their environment. And that's exactly what they said about slaves. They're saying they used to say the black people were enslaved for so long, it has like impeded their cognitive abilities. Like they can't learn because generations after generations of illiteracy has made it to where they just can't learn. They can't do it. Poor them. And this was seen as like a sympathetic statement, not a racist evil statement, but like, oh, they can't, they've been slaves too long, they just can't learn. And that's exactly what the people are saying about poor minorities today. Of like, oh, they just haven't had the advantages, so it is impossible for them to do this. And it's like, what are you saying? This is crazy. You're making a judgment on their capacity based on their environment.
Can you imagine saying to a black guy like at a restaurant, let me help you with that menu, I know you guys can't read?
I mean, it's like that's what white people are supposed to do or something. It's like these white saviors. Let me help you.
Yes, that's the irony of like whenever it's in a movie or something, it's like, oh, the white savior, blah blah blah. But then in reality, they live that meme out. Yeah,
it's like, well, white people are the only ones who can do it and who have power.
Yes,
that's not true. Like, why would you want that to be true? Why would that's it's insane.
Speaking of the whole compromise and all that, the Civil War is another thing where it gets into like incrementalism versus abolition, because that was another thing like that where you have incrementalists like William Wilberforce, who eventually did get rid of slavery, just he did it diplomatically and through politics, or abolitionists who like we got to fight for it, or we got to have revolutions, or we got to have, because like the Civil War was the final one, but it wasn't the first skirmish.
Yeah,
in America.
So check out this section that Vodi Bakum talks about abortion, as we're on the subject. Quote from Tim Keller. The Bible tells me that abortion is a sin and great evil, but it doesn't tell me the best way to decrease or end abortion in this country, nor which policies are most effective. As Tim Keller said that. He went on to say, quote, the current political parties offer a potpourri of different positions on these and many, many other topics, most of which, as just noted, the Bible does not speak to directly. This means when it comes to taking political positions, voting, determining alliances, and political involvement, the Christian has liberty of conscience. Christians cannot say to other Christians, no Christian can vote for ... or every Christian must vote for ... unless you can find a biblical command to that effect. And then Vodi Bakum says, set aside for a moment that the fact that thou shalt not kill is a pretty clear biblical command to that effect. I mean, what do you think about that statement, Frank Keller? I never knew he said that about like, oh, well, we don't, it's kind of hard to say. The Bible doesn't really say how to vote. It's like, well, it does say what's right.
Right. Well, that's the problem. Like in theory, if you were just to say out loud, Christians do not have to be Republican or Democrat. You don't have to be either one or the other. That statement in itself is true. That's correct. But when you look at the things that the two parties stand for, or both parties, it's a lot harder to hold that position.
Yeah, I mean, because in that section he's talking about like Christians being one issue voters and stuff, like, and we shouldn't be one issue voters because there's a lot of other things that can lead to death and pain and suffering of a lot of people. Talking about poverty, talking about inequity of outcome and stuff lead to death and all these other things. So we should be concerned about those things when we're voting too. And it's like, no, I mean, honestly, I can't see, like, Babylon B put it, I think it was the Trump election, saying like Christians are left with a choice between Democrat and Republican, one party that hypocritically and inconsistently holds to their position, and one that outright denies it. And so it's like we've got the Republicans who say one thing and do another. They say things that we agree with, but don't end up doing them or act very contradictory to it. And then we have Democrats who just outright say this thing is wrong. Homosexuality is right. Gay marriage is right. Abortion is good. It's like, okay, the Republicans are saying abortion is bad, but they're not doing anything about it, right? But the Democrats are saying it's good. So who do I choose in that? Just on the topic of abortion. You know what I mean? So it's those weird things, man. And then there's so much patriotic idolatry on the right as well. Right. It just becomes this other thing. It's just sucked into. So, yeah.
Well, I was talking about that with a friend at church where, I was saying like, well, I just wish there was more like actual Christians in politics. And they were like, oh, well, there's a lot in the America First Party. And I was like, well, I mean, I wish that there was more like Calvinistic, post-millennial, actual Christians in politics, not just the lip service Christians.
The dividing line there is the Bible. Because a lot of people say, a lot of those America First Christians will be like, well, the Bible's old. And it's, it's not really, take everything seriously. It's like, okay, well, then you're not a Christian. Like that's it. Like that's the big thing. That's what will divide the true Bible believing Christian from the good moral American, churchgoer.
And we talked about that a little bit too, because they were asking about end time stuff. Because I've taken that role in our small group where it's like, oh, you the end times person. So they were asking. I know they were asking if I thought there was like persecution coming in the future or whatever, and I was like, I don't know if there's persecution, but I think it's going to be a lot harder to be a casual church member than it used to be. It's going to be a lot harder to just skate under the radar because church isn't respectable anymore. Like that doesn't get you any clout from being a deacon. Oh, yeah. Now if you're going to be in church, you're going to have to be like in church, sold out, committed. Yeah.
Well, it's becoming that way on both sides with the Christians and the pagans, because it used to be like a lot of pagans would just be like, well, I don't know really what I believe, and what's good for you, good for you. It's like nail and jello tool, right? It's just kind of like, oh, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? They're not making any declarations. But now they're very happy to make declarations, and declarations against you of saying the lukewarmness is gone. It's like, hey, we're about this, and if you're about that, then you suck and you're terrible. And if you did this, and if you there's no middle wishy-washy ground really anymore. It's just, and which is great, because then we can actually see the collision of worldviews happening.
Yes,
which I much prefer. I much rather speak to a militant atheist, communist, God hater than someone's like, well, there's a lot of good things, and I don't know, I'm spiritual, I pray, but I don't really believe in God. But it's like, I don't know what to do with this person. Like, what do you, it's just insane. But like, just give me that head-on collision more any day. And I think is what our culture is going to. So the Christians have to be that way too.
Yes.
And not in an obnoxious, we hate you thing, but just like, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not going to water it down. I'm just going to say this. Like, homosexuality is wrong, but like, let's talk about it. Okay, let's have that conversation. The conversation happens where we disagree, right?
Yes.
And we okay, love your neighbor. Okay, yeah, we all are saying that. But who is your neighbor, and what does love mean? That's where, okay, now we have a conversation. Now we're here because we can agree on these things. But it's in the disagreement is where the conversations can happen, and the disagreements are becoming very, very clear, which means the conversations should become very clear. I hope so, and that's kind of, in a weird way, making me optimistic of this, of like, hey, we're gonna get hot versus cold, and that's good. Like, that's, we can see that now. It's clear.
I think there's still a few people trying to hold that middle ground, like they haven't realized yet, or they don't know that ground is gone, and they're still trying to like be respectable middle America and have all the right popular opinions and none of the wrong ones. But
I don't know them. I don't know where they are. I mean, everyone I talk to is like Trump, or like, we hate Trump, or like,
who's not even the president anymore.
I mean, just look at the reactions from all news about this abortion law. Right. It's not, there's no middle ground. It's, this is horrible. This is terrible. It's The Handmaid's Tale. It's, oh my gosh, we can't kill our babies now. And it's like, they're not even hiding the ball anymore. They're just like out with it. And so it's like, okay, great. We got to be too. Hallelujah. Praise and amen. This new law. Thank you. Like this, we should say that. That's, but let's talk. Let's get this going. Let's get this, it's not just to like get into this Christian bubble. It's to declare the gospel and the truth, and then contend with opposing worldviews.
I mean, we'll see how it plays out in the coming weeks. I don't know. It's going to be weird because I can't imagine that, the Supreme Court let it stand, so that's going to be the end of it. Like, I don't think that's how it's going to happen.
No, I don't think Roe is going to be overturned or anything like that. And I guess this opens up to like lawsuits or something, kind of like the
right.
Because it can't be just like, oh, this is something that's there, let me just do it. It's got to be like a case to like.
Well, you know what's crazy though? Like with gay marriage, that is what happened. The Supreme Court said this was they said this was a thing, and everybody's like, that's the law, that's it. You can't do anything about it. Too late, we won.
Yeah. Yeah, and people really don't know what the Supreme Court is there to do. They think they're like, the Supreme Court gives me the right. Like, no, they don't. The Supreme Court doesn't give rights. What are you talking about? Like, it declares something constitutional or not. That's it. Like, that's basically it. It's a court. You're talking about Senate and Congress. They pass laws, and they're the ones that like enact legislation and stuff. So it's not the Supreme Court makes a law. Like, the Supreme Court actually, in this case, did nothing. Right. That's the controversy, is that they did nothing.
That was like when they wanted Pence to throw out the election results in the Electoral College, and he didn't. And it was like, well, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to do nothing. He's just supposed to be there.
That's a big thing with people. We want a politician to do something. Do something. Do something about this. You're the man. Do something. Right. It's like, they're not the king. They're not supposed to be the king, raining down from on high the law. Right. And like, it's super weird. We really got that screwed up on that whole like obey your rulers thing in Romans 13. Yes. Because for America, as a constitutional republic, our emperor, our ruler in a Romans 13 sense, is the Constitution, and the president and all the administrators, they're administrators of the Constitution. Right. And so they are supposed to be held to that emperor, to that ruler, to that final thing, say, of the Constitution. and they're not. And so when they say something, it doesn't matter. It's unconstitutional. They're not obeying the emperor. You know what I mean? It's like you have, like, in Rome, you have an emperor, and you have like your local governor in like kind of proprietorship or whatever, and then they're doing things that the emperor said you cannot do. And it's like, well, hang on, we're supposed to obey the law, the ruler. You're not the ruler. You're the administrator of what the ruler hands out, and you're not doing it. So that's the problem. So you point them to the Constitution. You point them to the emperor, and so they're the ones disobeying Romans 13, basically, when they're not being constitutional.
Right.
So
we're talking about documents in a generation that doesn't read. So it's really,
yeah.
Who's louder? That's who I'm going with.
Documents can't arrest me for not wearing a mask. Document can't shoot me for homeschooling my kids.
Well, speaking of former presidential candidates,
gosh,
this week, dude, my wife was so mad at me because I threatened to write in Kanye West for like a week leading up to voting. And she was like, I swear, if you write him in, I'm going to kill you. I was like, give me a reason not to. I can't think of one.
I know, man.
But Kanye West's new album came out this past week. We've had a couple of days to sit with it. You, after some prodding, because you were not into it up front.
It's not my jam.
Not your jam at all. Which you did say that you liked the last one. You like Jesus is King.
I did like Jesus is King. I did like that one when I first heard. I hadn't listened to much of Kanye, just the popular stuff and just kind of, the like ones everybody knows. But I wasn't like a big Kanye fan or whatever, like just like a normal listener. But then, Jesus is King, I was like, well, I gotta check that out,
Right.
So I listened to that. Yeah, I was like, well, that's crazy. Let me check it out. And I liked it. It was good. But this one, man, first of all, it was like 50 songs.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours long.
Which is a problem because most of the songs sound the same, and I'm having a hard time figuring out like what song. I can't tell you what song is which. And there's a lot of auto-tune mumble rap, which is just like it just sucks. Like, didn't that go out like 10 years ago?
I was a huge fan of Kanye West, following him pretty much all through. Listen, I think I have all of his stuff on some format. So when I was convinced that he was gonna die young. That was what I thought was gonna happen after My Beautiful Dark Fantasy came out and Twisted Fantasy came out, and then when he started dyeing his hair, and I was like, oh, he's gonna die. We're gonna any day now. We're gonna wake up and it's gonna be Kanye West dead, found dead. I thought that's where it was going.
You think he killed himself?
That's what I thought. I really thought he was going to OD or crash his car again or something like that.
Oh, man.
Because he looked like he was having that mental breakdown.
Well, he is. It was. But.
Well, yes. But instead, I wake up to the news that Kanye West is a Christian now. So that was a complete 180. So
he died to self.
He died to self, yes. He died the true death so that he could live the true life.
Yeah.
So that was really, like, for me, that was a positive. So I was really into Jesus is King. I thought that one was really good. I thought it was the best album he put out in a while, because the ones after Life of Pablo I didn't care for. Kids See Ghosts I didn't really like, and Yay I didn't really like. That one was pretty good because it seemed focused. It wasn't scattershot like he was before. This one is kind of a mix. It feels like stuff that he was working on got put on the album with stuff that was focused.
Yeah. This one just like, let me just throw
whatever everything. I got.
Yeah.
And the mumble rap thing is interesting because Kanye West is kind of a guy who changed hip hop in a way, right? Like there was his album, Graduation, and one of 50 Cent's album came out on the same day. And it was like a big controversy, like who's going to outsell? This is going to be the determinant of where rap goes going forward. And Kanye outsold him like 3-1. So like hip hop just changed completely in that point. So I think he was trying to move with it again because it's changed again. Now it's mumble rap and now it's SoundCloud, and he's just not that guy. He can't do that.
Yeah. I've heard some of the same kind of stuff on Eminem's last album, which is weird too.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you're like he's like the opposite of that.
Yes.
Of that weird.
He's very a lyricist.
Right. And so like to have like people featured on his songs that are doing that mumble rap thing, is like, what the heck? And he even like makes fun of it, but then he like kind of has it on some of his songs. But it's like, okay, where can I find someone a new trending, hot new hip hop star that's not mumble rap? You can't,
right? I mean, that's you got to move units still. You still got to make sales, so you got to put somebody featured on you who the kids are hip to now.
Yeah, and this like fake fight he had with Machine Gun Kelly, like
that was the saddest part for me. Like, why are you fighting with Machine Gun Kelly? That's weird.
Oh man, when he called him Stan, that was like that was amazing.
Have you seen this thing where people refer to themselves as Stans?
Like Eminem fans?
Yeah, no, just like general fans of anything in general.
Like obsessive. I want to.
Yeah, I didn't know that was what they were referencing, but that's what it's a reference to, the song. And I was like, holy, this has gone too far. The lyrical content was super interesting because he does talk a lot about his marriage or his former marriage, his failed marriage.
Kanye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was super interesting to me to kind of hear that play out.
So I don't know what's going on. Like, are they divorced or like what happened?
From what I understand is that she basically, this is what I gather from what I've seen and read. They got married before he had this spiritual awakening.
It was like Corinthians thing of like.
Yes, exactly. He went one way and she was not having it.
Yeah, but if she decides to go, let them.
Yeah, and apparently that's what happened. She decided to file for divorce. And one of the things I saw was really interesting because it was her talking about how, he wanted to move to Montana and he wanted to get out of LA and he wanted to get away from the celebrity culture and everything. And she just couldn't do it. She didn't want to. She wanted to stay in LA and be in all of that.
She is.
That's what she is. That's exactly.
Her identity. Like that's,
and
function without that.
Ironically, that's why he married her in the first place. But he was a different person then. So it didn't work anymore. So seeing all that kind of play out and him talking about seeing her kind of not be in love with him and kind of have other interests and their marital breakdown was super interesting. And kind of his searching and grasping for God in that was really interesting to see play out. And, to see like your life, you think your life's together and it's starting to fall apart and still kind of holding on to like, he had a line that said, I got to see where God, where the blessings are. And I was like, that's true. Like even when it's weary and dire, you still got to stay there. And then it's the fact that it's called Donda, about his mom. And when she died, that was another big thing for him. Ironically, his mom died from complications related to plastic surgery.
What?
Yeah, that's how she died.
Oh man.
So it's kind of like his celebrity lifestyle, because like she wasn't getting that before he was a rapper, obviously, but him being famous kind of put her into that too, and then she was in that life. His lifestyle kind of killed her.
Oh man, it's nuts.
So all of that on top of it, yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was really cool to just see him kind of put it all out there, what he's feeling, what he's going through, what he's thinking. There was some controversy because he had Marilyn Manson on there.
What?
In the jail track, I think Marilyn Manson is credited as a writer. I don't know what he wrote. It was the guitar breakdowns or what, but he's credited as a writer on there.
I mean, that's crazy. So, yeah, that I didn't like it that much. I didn't even know it was coming out till you said something. I was like, okay, well, check it out. And it's just like, man, it's very, it's like a first draft kind of, like, man, kind of filter through some of this a little bit,
right?
Put something else in there of like, or take some stuff out, or like, it's like someone's written a really, really super long novel, and it's like, you've got way too much stuff in here, dude. You got to like, cut this down. And it's like, there's no second draft. It's just, you just leave everything in. It's like, maybe not. So that's probably my biggest like assessment of it, just as an album. And yeah, it's weird. The whole, man, it does show that. So does he like cuss still on his albums and
So
then bleeps it out?
that's what was weird because he says hell a couple of times in that constant, like why the hell are you coming, why the hell would you, and so that was, but then there's a couple of like dead spots where you can tell he's saying the n-word, or the n-word was written but it doesn't say.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, with some real, and it's like, okay, did you like say it and cut it out? How about don't say it? Like, you're writing the song, right? Like, you're not singing someone else's
Well, it
song.
just flows. It's second nature.
That was kind of weird. I was like, why do it and then cut it out? It's one thing to do it,
right?
And then, but another thing to do it and then cut it out. Like, if you're writing this, why not?
Why not say it?
Yeah, something. I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. Some weird choices there.
That was odd. I did notice that. That did stick out.
So, what was your favorite song on the album?
Ooh, probably Jesus Lord is probably still my favorite of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's I can pick that one out of the album of what song that is. Yeah, and then, I think Jail is probably my favorite song.
Oh, that's it's so good because it's so like bare and stripped. It's real raw.
Guess who's going to jail tonight? Yeah, God's gonna post my bail tonight. And he's like happy about it. He's like
heavy distorted guitar, just that.
Yeah,
like it's real. Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah, that's a good one because that is that kind of like surrender of like, all right, it's just me and you, God. Like this is it. I'm about to be taken. My whole life, like, was it? I got priors. Like he's getting pulled over and stuff. And it's like, all right, I'm going to jail. I remember talking to somebody one time. I was talking about getting pulled over. It was at Heroes. I won't mention names, but nobody we really worked too closely with, but some people.
Okay.
But we were just talking about like, oh, I got pulled over, I got a ticket or something. Oh, and then there's telling he's like, yeah. It's like, I was like, man, just like seeing those headlights and it's for you. Like, dang, that sucks. Like I'm getting pulled over. And he's like, yeah, especially when you're gonna be arrested. And I was like, that's a little different than what goes through my head. When I see police lights in my rearview mirror, I don't think I'm going to be arrested.
Right. I think I'm going to be late for something.
Call me white privilege, but but I don't think I'm going to be inconvenienced at most. But I'm pretty sure I know what I've done in my past. So, but yeah. So he was like talking about he's holding, and he's like, yep, I'm going to get arrested tonight. Like I'm getting pulled over. So it made me kind of think of that of like, all right. Well, here we go. It's just kind of that surrender of like my life's different now.
That's kind of funny too, because when you're sinning, I feel like you kind of have that mentality, like you're gonna get caught, but you're gonna ride it out until you're not.
Yeah.
And then when you do get caught, it's like, well, I guess this is it. Like there's no getting out of it.
When you were a kid, did you tend to think more that you would get away with stuff or that you'd always be caught?
Oh, I always thought I would be caught.
Me too. I always thought it never even crossed my mind to like even do it because I think I'm just going to get caught. There's no way I'm going to get away with this. And so I guess that kind of negativity, like, is that like a lack of confidence in yourself of like, I can get away with it?
No, it's
like,
I
can't. I won't get away with it. They'll find out.
You had a Mexican mom. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They find out everything.
He would say, God will let me know. God, I was like, what? What are you talking about?
You're praying about that? Like, are you really talking to her?
Yeah, like, what the heck?
I thought we were cool.
Yeah. No, I never thought I'd get away with anything. I thought I'd always get caught. I had a friend one time, probably a friend I shouldn't have had, came to my bedroom window one night to like go to a party, like, hey man, let's go. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I'm not sneaking out of the house. I mean, like it just didn't even like. I was like, no, I can't go, and because like my mom's gonna come in the middle of the night and see my empty room,
right?
And like that's gonna be an issue. That's gonna be like how I just assume she's gonna just get up in the middle of the night for some reason, open my door and see me gone, like in the middle of the night. Like that is what will happen if I leave, or like even just now, and no matter even if I'm here, she's gonna come in and see me.
She's gonna come in and see,
Right. So it's like it never crossed my mind of like I'm gonna I'll sneak out, I'll get away with it, I'll come back or whatever. But I don't know. I think a lot of kids like I remember people saying like I don't care, and it's like what? How do you not care that you like just get in trouble or something? I remember people there being like an issue one time where like cops were called to a party and we were skedaddling, and some people like weren't, and were like, "F it, I don't." Yeah, they're like, "F it, I don't care." I'm like, I don't be arrested. How can you just like shrug off like being arrested like that? Well, let's go. We got to get out of here.
It's kind of like it's the hands-off parenting, because it's that idea that like my parents are gonna find out because they're gonna check, like they're gonna look into something. But if your parents are more hands-off, you probably never had to deal with consequences ever. So they're like, consequences aren't serious to you in any way.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird. I always thought I'd get caught. I never thought I'd get away with anything. And yeah, and it's just but when you are in trouble, it is that like, okay, well, here we go. Like this is just, I got caught. Like and now we just deal with the fallout of whatever this is. So that's kind of song about that. And I think that is that like God catching you, rather than like, well, here, let me do something great by inviting Jesus into my heart, versus that coming to salvation story versus I'm caught. Like you got me. Like this is it. I can't deny this. I surrender. And this is just, I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to try and run away anymore. I'm here. You got me. And let's deal with this. I repent. And and it's really that like train wreck of coming to Christ. I think a lot of times it's portrayed as like this amazing thing that you do, that you've just like finally been enlightened and see the light. Right. And to a certain extent that is true, but it's not always pretty, because it's not pretty when you have to deal with your sin, when you have to look and realize the debt you owe, right? That is a tough pill to swallow of like, wait, what? Hang on, that's a sin? Wait, hang on. But I love that. But I kind of identify and define my life by that. Right. Tell me that's a sin? I mean, that's a hard thing to deal with, and most people don't. That's what people idolize it, and it is their identity, and they don't want to repent and confess of that sin. But the Bible calls it a sin, so it's just that, and that's where the denial comes from of like, well, I'll say what's a sin, instead of just accepting that and then repenting of it. That's a surrender. It's more of just like a waving a white flag of like, I'm done. Like, this is it. You got me. I'm here. Like, just take it, everything. And, just scary because you don't know what that word that it could mean. Jars of Clay have a really good song called Worlds Apart. And, it really is about that. Like, take my world apart. I was like, you know what you're saying? Like that, that could be some of your favorite idols, and you're going to crush your idols and melt them down and make you drink it. Like, okay. That's what coming to Christ. That's what becoming a Christian looks like. I mean, really. And that's what that is. And I think Kanye really understands that, of like, he's having to drink a lot of molten iron right now, just through his whole life of everything. And he's doing it publicly. And it's like, man, I remember when this whole thing, when he first became a Christian, it was like, there was a lot of like, yeah, we'll see. It was a lot of like, okay, sure, whatever.
Kanye,
he had some emotional experience. Okay, whatever. He'll be, same as that person next year. And I remember someone said, and it really resonated with me. It's like, man, I'm really, really glad the entire world wasn't watching me when I first became a Christian, because it's kind of a process of like, again, crushing those idols and melting them down and getting rid of that, like cleaning out. It's a lot of like just cleaning to do. Just in that understand, not to earn salvation, but that now that you are saved and can act rightly, to crush those idols and get rid of these things and change and kind of go through the whole process. Do that publicly in front of the entire world. Man, that's just waiting for me to mess up. Waiting for me to be a hypocrite, just waiting for me to, contradict the things I say I believe now. Like, man, I'm really glad all those cameras weren't on me when I first became a Christian, because that really like made me think like, man, That's true. Like that's a tough place to be. But I mean, by all accounts, I guess. I mean, the fact that like the divorce with Kim didn't, you know what I mean? Like, because that's an idol, and that's
Right.
A status, and that's a thing that he's willing to just let go. And it's like, okay, that's what happens.
I don't know, man. It's yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, that he's having to do it all in public with a record of everything. And that was one of the things that I thought was interesting.
Like the most public.
When he first became a Christian, he was trying to get all his old music pulled off Spotify and Apple. And
really?
Yeah, he was trying to get it all pulled off. And he couldn't do it because he doesn't own the rights.
Yeah,
Universal owns the rights.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
I was wondering about that. Of like, okay, well, how come you still got all that stuff on there? I was like, well,
yeah,
own it.
He's been in a legal fight with Universal to try to get the rights, but I mean, what are you going to do? You're in a contract. You can't get the rights back. He was on I forget who was interviewing him, and they were talking about it, and they were like, well, what if we still like the old music? And he's like, well, you can go on eBay, you can type in Kanye West, and you can find the CDs on there. But yeah, he can't get anything pulled. Apparently, he said that this album was released before he gave the okay. Universal was like, it's good enough.
Well, so I saw that it said they released it without Jail 2 Part 2, but then it's on there.
Well, okay, so this is where it gets weird. When they released it, it was on there, but it's not the same Jail 2 that's on there now.
Oh.
So like they tweaked it from then to now.
Can't he just like release the original somewhere or something?
I don't know if there's like a contractual thing that keeps him from doing that.
I also saw there was some kind of beef between him and some mumble rapper I never heard of. Complaining about like, oh, he asked me to be on this track or something, and then I'm not even on it or something like that. And like causing a huge fuss. And like a lot of people like, oh, he's insane. He's stupid, wasting my time. Like, and I'm like, I never heard of this guy. Who is this? And then I see him like, and then I guess the song was supposed to be on Remote Control, and he like has something on his Instagram of him doing his part. I was like, this sucks. Like
that's why you're not on the track,
right? I think we all know why, but it's just that mumble. Let me just rap the same over and over and over again. Oh my god, dude, this sucks. Yeah, but I don't know, a lot of drama.
So one of the things when we were talking about it is that there had been for a long time I had heard about and kind of checked in on, but wasn't really into reform hip hop.
Yeah,
like Christian hip hop with a reform angle to it, and Shailin, I guess, is like the biggest dude. There's another guy, Tadashi, who's supposed to be like another Flame. It just never really stuck with me. I just couldn't.
Beautiful Eulogy.
Beautiful, yeah, all of those. I thought this is kind of corny. It's not.
Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah, something I should be 100% into.
Right.
I'm not.
Just not at all.
It's very strange. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, something about. I mean, it's cool. I like it, and like I say, it's like not good. I'm not saying it's not good.
I'm saying it's not good.
I'm not saying it's not good. It's just like I don't like for maybe there's some things in life that are just like too on the nose. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
right.
Like someone will tell me about something and like, oh, yeah, it's this great thing. It's like about comic books or something, and I'll watch it. I'm like, I don't like this. This is, so it's like, but you like comics, and like
they're hitting all the right things, but it's just not. You don't feel
like Big Bang Theory or something, yes. Right? Like I should love Big Bang Theory, but I don't.
Right.
So it's like, sorry, like maybe it's big. I think you can get too close to things. Maybe it's like somebody works at a pizza parlor, and it's like, oh, there's this pizza, and it's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, would you work at a pizza place? Like, yeah, I know.
Dude, that was how many times did people try to talk to you about comics at the store, and you're just like, I don't care.
I mean, I like to talk about comics, but it's hard because you're just around it all day. I think with something like that, because we had like Rick and Rob, and like people kind of like they had already kind of gone through that phase of hating comics, and then kind of so like when you're like a fan and a customer, you like comics and you read everything. You don't know what's good,
Right.
you don't know what you're supposed, and then you work there and you surround by it all day, talk about it all day, and then you hate comics, and it's like, oh my god, I don't care anymore. I mean, watch football or something, and then. But then what you start doing is you start refining your taste, right?
Yes,
and so then
right.
you know what comics to read, what writers, what artists and stuff. And so you kind of know what's good and what's not. And you know that like 80% is not good.
Right.
And then, but you didn't know that before, but you kind of got to go through that like baptism by fire of like, in it all the time. And just you gotta like it's like you got to get sick of it to start appreciating the best of it. And I don't know if that's really where I am with like the reform hip hop and stuff, but I don't know. I just never really got into it.
I don't my
Oh, Mark. Oh man, I miss Mark.
Dude, Mark was the highlight of most days.
Oh my god, yes he was. Oh dude. I remember like one time he was leaving the store and for some reason he said something. He said CSI Miami is the bomb.com. I don't know if he was quoting something or like where that came from. I was like, what? And then his story about when he got mugged.
Oh yeah, with the rock.
Oh, it's so funny. Oh man.
That's what when you were talking about the hero story getting pulled over, I was like, that's like 5 people I could think of that could fit that story.
It wasn't Mark.
No, it wasn't Mark, no. But it was 5 other people I could think of where that would fit.
I'm gonna drag Mark's good name through the mud.
Through the mud.
No, it wasn't Mark. It wasn't anybody. It wasn't anybody that worked at the 410 store. Let's just say that.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Which narrows it down quite a bit, but also very few options.
So my problem with the reform hip hop is kind of the same problem with some like Christian podcasts, Christian people, preachers, I guess, is this idea of you're telling me things I already know, but not anything about them that I actually care about.
Yeah.
So like with Kanye, what's interesting is like he's not giving me anything super deep as far as theological statements or ideas, but I'm getting a glimpse into how it actually affects his life.
Yeah.
And like how he actually believes. Like when he says something like what they vandalize, he'll evangelize. Like that's not a super deep statement, but at the same time, like, man, I get that on a deeper, like I understand where you're coming from. But with the reform stuff, it's like they're just giving me the facts and that's it.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me thinking about something we've talked about where it's official theology versus functional theology. What you believe versus what you live.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that idea came on my radar. Man, I guess almost 3 years ago now. Maybe more than 3 years ago now. Our church did a community group thing, a book study through this book called Sexual Sanity for Men. I think the women had one too, but we had like basically just discipleship groups that got into it and that went through it together and stuff. And that's actually what started my discipleship group with two guys from church every Friday morning at gyms. And we have been consistently meeting every Friday morning with like a small handful of times missed every Friday morning to meeting together to go through a book. And since we started that like over 3 years ago, through COVID on Zoom, 6 a.m., let's meet on Zoom, we stayed with it. Dude, I mean, talk about discipline and like discipleship.
Dude, I would rather get up at 6 to meet in person than on Zoom.
Well, we tried, but nothing was open.
I know, but
we did go to his house. We did go to one of the guy's house and stuff, but I got my family here. It's all loud. And so, but like he was single, so we went over to his house, So we did do that through COVID and stuff, but also through Zoom and everything. But no, man, yeah, it's really been that's been a huge boon to my Christian walk is these two guys that just that consistency and gaining trust and gaining, like, going through, like, we've gone through all of Genesis, Job, Jonah, Romans, John. We're going through Puritan paperback right now. We've gone through Sproul, Work of Christ. Gone through this. We've gone through like almost 10 books together of just like chapter by chapter every week, meeting up and talking about it. And yeah, it's just been good, man. It's just been really, really good. I mean, but yeah, so this is kind of where all that started, was with this book. And in it, he talks about, it's about fighting sexual morality and just like that lust and pornography and just sexual morality in general and everything. But in it, he talks about the functional theology versus your official theology. And that really like resonated with me. Like, man, that's a big one that we all, like, we talked, like you said, like we kind of go through of like, I know black and white on paper what is right, but then I know what I do. And what, and it's getting those lined up, you know.
Right.
But this first part where he talks about it, where he says, this is often how we live. Even as Christians, we sing hymns and worship songs that exalt God, declaring with the psalmist that his, quote, steadfast love is better than life, Psalm 63:3. This is our official theology, but the way we live demonstrates another allegiance. Our sexual sin reveals our functional theology. Here's another way to think about it. Your true religion is what you delight in. The thing that most excite your heart and make life worth living are pointers toward where you place your ultimate hope. And I was like, whoa, like, because you can say all day long, right? I mean, you can say, and you can quote chapter and verse, and you can know the right answers, and you can everything, and then you live your life, and it's like, okay, well, what is that? That's not what you just said, you know? And so, but it's like, and it's hard because, like, how can you know something so cognitively correct and not have it play out in your life? You know, and it's just, what you do shows more where your allegiances lie, where you're putting your hope, you know? So that was a really big idea.
That's funny, because that's what I was talking about with somebody today, because we got into a little abortion debate, and you know, it got into religion a little bit because it's on scripture or whatever, and he said, well, are we talking about what religion we believe in or what we think about abortion? And I was like, well, there's not a difference. They're the same thing.
It shouldn't be,
because what you do is going to say what your religion is. That's
right.
Yeah.
So James 1,
but I think there is on not just that. I think on a lot of things there's a difference.
Yeah. Well, so James 1:22-25 says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forget what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. And so that's the whole thing of like, well, we can say and hear, and I know what I'm supposed to do, I don't do it. You know?
That's rough. Because it's not one of those, there's so many things where there's no ambiguity at all from a scriptural perspective. Like, it's clear what you're supposed to do, and is how many times we just don't do it for whatever, we like the other option better, or it's easier, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we like to lay out our theology of who we are. We want to tell you. So the thing is, in storytelling, in novel writing, and in creative writing and literature and stuff, where it's the difference between showing and telling, right?
Yes, right.
So like when you read a book, and it's like a novel or something, and it's just telling you what is happening and how the people are feeling and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, great, thanks, you know. But when they play out a character's personality through what he's doing, then you see that, and it's like, oh wow, like that impacts us more than just telling you about this mobster or something, this mob guy. He's connected with the mafia. It's like, okay, great, okay, I have the information now. But when they show you through scenes and like play something out of him taking money from somebody, say, man, whoa, that's what that looks like, that's what that means, and you get it. but they're showing you instead of telling you, right? And that's always the best kind of storytelling. That's the best drama. That's the best kind of literature and stuff, is when you're shown it and you kind of piece it together yourself and make your own assessment of that person through their actions. Then just like, he's the bad guy. Hey, everyone, he's the bad guy. It's like, okay, great, thanks. And, but when it show you like, oh, wow, he's doing these terrible things. And this is what, we create this, we're more we can connect with it more. I think we can relate to it more when we see something actions taken, rather than saying, "Oh, he's the bad guy." Because I'll never say I'm the bad guy. I'll never. It's like if the author says this character's the bad guy. It's like, okay, great. Well, that's not me. I'm the good guy. I'm not a bad guy. But then I see him do. But if I see him do bad things that I've done, it's like, oh, well, what is that? And then you slowly realize through the storytelling and through the actions and being shown, this is the bad guy. And you see them doing a lot of things and feeling a lot of things, whatever that you maybe felt. It's like, am I a bad guy? Like you start questioning yourself. You start seeing in that mirror, right? We show.
You know what? That reminds me, because I'm thinking of Tarantino while you're talking about this. Is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's that rumor that Cliff killed his wife, but they never tell you if he killed his wife or not. And the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, there's no way he killed his wife, right? But it's just because I like this guy, because he's cool. He does cool things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't negate the idea that he could have killed his wife.
Well, if you read the book, you know he killed his wife.
I haven't read the book yet. Damn it. Now I can't read the book because you told me. And it's only $10. I keep thinking about buying it every time I'm there.
You should. No, yeah, it's true. It's like you leave it to the imagination, leave it to mystery and stuff, and because your imagination can think of something worse than what they could show you with the special effects or whatever. I kind of leave that part up to you. But yeah, that's the drama of this thing. And when you talk about like the difference between Kanye and these like reformed hip hop people who like it's like the difference between a textbook and like living an experience or something. And it's not to say that what's in the textbook isn't true. There is truth in that, but it doesn't resonate with us because we're not engaging in the drama there together. And that's why I think it's so great that the Bible is a story, and it's like the greatest story ever told. It's a drama, and there's like certain steps. So there's a really good podcast called The White Horse Inn, where they examine the 4 Ds. They talk about the 4 Ds in like the Christian walk, which is drama, doctrine, doxology, and discipleship. And so you see the drama of everything played out, right? Christ and chasing after the bride and the whole. I mean, Doug Wilson said the entire story of the Bible is kill the dragon, get the girl, And it's like, wow, that is the story of the Bible. That's the Bible. And it's also this drama about the father finding a bride for his son, right? Too,
right?
You see with like Jacob and Isaac and stuff, and so we see that, and so it's the drama, doctrine, doxology, and discipleship. So we're engaged in the drama. We're drawn in by the story, where it touches our heart, it affects us, and then we're brought into the doctrine. Like, what does this all mean? And I think that's where the reformed hip hop guys are.
Right? Yes.
Like Kanye's at the drama, like pulling people in and like resonating, and we can relate to it, and we've been through that valley and all those things. And then we get to the textbooks and stuff of like doctrine. Like, well, what does this all mean? What is this? Let's parse this out. Scripturally.
Right.
And then it's the doxology of like, God's amazing. This is the adoration, and this is the praise and worship and stuff. And then it's the discipleship of like playing that out. And so that's that. So that doctrine is like our official theology, and the discipleship is the functional theology. It's the discipline in our daily lives, and discipleship in that learning more about it.
Maybe that's the problem for me. Maybe they just have it misplaced, because like. Art is story, but they're not telling me a story.
Yeah, it's not really art.
Yeah, right.
but like what Kanye is doing is because he's showing that personal experience.
Yes.
And he's drawing you into those relatable moments.
Right.
I'm going to jail tonight, whatever. It's like, okay, like we've kind of all experienced some version of that.
Right.
But yeah, so official theology versus functional theology. And let me just read this one section as well. Matthew 7:15 through 23. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, workers of lawlessness. That is like one of the most freak me out moments in the Bible, in Scripture, because it's like, they say to me, Lord, I have prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, do many mighty work. I've never prophesied. I've never cast out demons. I've never done mighty works, and even those guys, he said, I never knew you. You know what I mean? Like someone's prophesying in Christ's name and casting out demons, and Jesus like, I don't know who you are. I don't know you. You're not mine. It's like, I've not done anything like that. Cool. It's like, what is he going to say about me when I come to him saying, Lord, Lord, right? Mm-hmm. And it's this really freak me out thing of the difference between a living faith and mental ascension, right?
Right.
And that's hard for me being like, because that's what fires me up and like been my biggest draw in my Christian walk is the theology and the books and the doctrine and the understanding of it in all the official theology, like all that. And it's like, oh man, am I just mentally ascending to something? Or do I have like real faith in this, a living faith in this? Am I bearing good fruit? Am I, doing this? And am I doing the will of the Father who's in heaven, right? And that's kind of like freaks me out because like, well, how would you even know?
Right. We have a video about this on our TikTok page if anybody wants to go there and check that out. So it's that idea of the relationship, right? And I think that's where the crux is, because when I think about that, I think about my dad, who never knew my birthday or how old I was ever. I just could not remember when I was born or how old I was at any point in my life. But we had a relationship. Like he knew he didn't know any of that. But
he was there, wasn't he? I was there. I gotta know how old you are.
Good enough.
I got you a present.
He couldn't tell you my birthday or when I was born. But if you took him to the comic book store, he could pick out a book that I liked. So like he didn't have the facts maybe, but he knew me enough to know what I liked and what I didn't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's that way with the Christian faith. Like there's a lot of people that can recite the Bible, but it's another thing to know what's pleasing to God and to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's that word knowing, right? It's not just a cognitive understanding of you. It's that relational Adam knew Eve, right?
Yes.
That's what Christ is talking about there is like, I do not have an intimate interpersonal relationship with you. I know who you are.
Right.
I know everything about you, but you're not mine. Right. I do not know you in that relational way, right? That familiar way, in that connected way, that a man loves his wife.
Right.
The man, Adam went into Eve and knew her, and she bore a son.
Right.
That kind of the biblical knew.
Well, that's why marriage is such a perfect picture of the gospel, because like who do you know better than somebody that you've been like that with? Like there's no deeper intimacy than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Knew her biblically.
That was is it Talladega Nights where he's talking about because he knew her in the biblical sense. It's what's his name? Kenneth from 30 Rock.
Oh man. He's probably my favorite part of that show. I watched that whole show. That's like the best part. He's like this like angel or something. It's like a immortal character. I remember there was one part where he was like bald he was playing Leap Day William, the Leap Day mascot guy, and he's bald, and he's like, and they're like, It's like all these weird things you don't know about him, right? And he's like, they're like, oh, Kenneth, take off that bald cap. He's like, yes, take off the bald cap, not put on my wig.
That actor is so perfect for that role because he is that like,
So
how
weird.
old are you? Where are you from?
So ambiguous, so weird. Like, yeah. No, that's good. But yeah, that's that knowing. That's the new. That's the biblical
Right.
knowing of like that. Really, I never knew you. You were never mine. You're never part of this. And that's freaky, man. That's just
Yeah,
that's
it really
really
is.
because we look at we put in high esteem casting out demons and prophesying in the name,
Right.
and do mighty works in your name. Like that's what we're kind of all about. It's what a lot of people's Christianity is just kind of this actions and stuff. But then it's like, well, what the heck? Like, what am I supposed to do? How do I know? And I think it's the conviction of sin mainly,
Right.
and the repentance of sin, and that if you don't repent and confess sin, you're not Christian. And so it's like, okay, well, that's all right. And if you're justifying sin, and if you're calling good what God calls evil, I mean, that's a big part of it. And I think you can do that and be doing mighty works in God's name,
Right.
At least outwardly, appearance wise.
Well, there's the section where the high priests are talking, and Caiaphas says something about Jesus, and then John has a little footnote like he was prophesying because he was the high priest that year. He didn't know he was prophesying, but he was.
Yeah.
And it's just that funny thing, like he's completely pagan, he's plotting to kill somebody, but also he's prophesying. Like the thing he's saying is still a prophecy from God.
Yeah. This again from this book from David White. He says, again, all Christians live with both an official theology and a functional theology. Our official theology is the faith we publicly profess. We proclaim many things about God and declare with the psalmist that he is steadfast love better than life, but we live very differently. Here's a small example. I believe God sees everything I do, that I have been entrusted as his steward with children to shepherd and raise to adulthood and spiritual maturity. I believe I will be accountable for every idle word I speak. Even more significantly, I believe that my joy and contentment in life are found in walking in step with the Spirit, faithfully living out my calling. But there are countless times when my desire for comfort, solitude, and tranquility trumps everything else. I believe those things will give me life. This becomes my functional theology, and I throw out my official theology in an instant, willing to yell at my children in order to get what I crave most. Man, that hits hard. That hits home. Like, oh my gosh, how many times have I idolized my free time, my hobby time, my fun time, whatever, to the expense of yelling at my kid or something for annoying me or something. It's like, oh my gosh, like what I know everything that the Bible says about being a father and like what that means, and I can read it and know it and everything, but then it comes in that moment and I just like yell at him or something, or I get annoyed and I just let a functional theology completely throw away everything I just said I know is true about fatherhood and stuff. And it's like, man, that sucks, man. Like something to contend with and face, man,
Yeah, man, it's oof. But how many times will you like not inconvenience yourself for your wife either? Like, just little things like that. It's like you need functionally, we know what everything that it says about being a father and a husband, and it's like, yeah, but me though.
Right. Well, I think we categorize a lot of those things in our official theology. We categorize a lot of great works and doing things in these big ways of like, well, I'll be a martyr for God. I'll say yes. I'll I'll do that and stuff, and say, okay, great, but you're probably never going to be in that situation. You know what I mean? What it looks more like is kind of compromising with your dummy friends or something, and like or watering another, like that's what it's going to mostly look like. A lot of people say like, I'll take a bullet for my wife. It's like, yeah, but when would you ever have to take a bullet for your wife? You know what I mean? Like it's easy to say when you'll never experience that situation, but what you won't do is let something go on a fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like I'll do the dish, like I won't. I'll take a bullet. I'll walk in front of traffic for her, but I won't.
I'm watching a video right now. You give a kid a bath.
Exactly. It's like, oh my gosh, but because those are the moments. That's when our functional theology is revealed. Not in the, I'll take a bullet. That's not going to come. We're not, we say that, but I won't, lose a fight for her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just like, oh my gosh. And those are the moments we face more often. And that's when our functional theology really gets revealed. And what does it show? It shows that you saying, I'll take a bullet for her, it's probably a lie. Because you won't even do the dishes for her or something,
Yeah, that's true. Wow. And that's what I think the modern times is revealing about church too, is like, we grew up with that idea of like martyrdom and all of that, but we still want to have friends at work, and like we still want to be able to post on Facebook, and we're going to make little compromises here. We're going to water down this, and we're going to watch our language here, and we're going to take this point here and just, be clean on the outside.
That's what we were talking about before, though, of like hot and cold, and like, hey, nobody else is watering anything down.
Right.
They're in your face with it, trying to get you fired. You know what I mean? Like, where are we speaking truth to people boldly? And it's like, we have the truth, and we're like timid with it. We want to we fear God we fear man rather than God. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
In those moments of like, well, I'm more worried about what they're going to say, my reputation with these people, these pagan, blind, lost people, than God. Okay, there's a functional theology being played out versus official theology.
Which, I mean, if we think about it in scriptural context, like what other reason are you there for around the pagan, blind people than to tell them those things that they need to hear? Yeah. That's the whole, how will they call on who they've not heard, and how will they hear if no one preaches, and how will they preach if nobody sent? Like, you're right there. You're right there.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 3:10-15 says, according to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it, for no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire.
Dude, that's one that gets me every time, because it's like the next step. It's like, okay, you're going to be saved, but barely.
Right.
Like,
so this is the current book that my friends and I are going through, in the Discipleship Group, Temptation by John Owen, Spiritual paperback. And it's a really good section. He says, oh, how few will be able to stand and hold out. Some will be utterly destroyed and perish forever. Others will get wounds to their souls that shall never be thoroughly healed while they live in this world. They will have their bones broken and limp all their days. Jeez. It's like, you're gonna make it, but it's gonna be tough, because you're gonna not have a probably great time of it. But you go to heaven. It's like, great. But you're gonna be. It's like you're gonna cross that finish line, but you'll be limping. It's like, man, it's like the videos you see of those guys, those triathletes, like they can't, they're like Bambi, they can't like
half is blown out.
They're like, and they're crawling across. They roll across that finish line, but look at them.
Yeah, man. That reminded. We were talking about me and some of the guys at church. We were talking about the Jacob Israel situation when he gets his hip dislocated, and then gets his name changed, and then the story goes forward, and he gets all the blessing or whatever. But it's just that idea that there's that little footnote that was like, after that day he walked with a limp. Yeah. And that's why blah blah blah. But just that crazy idea of like, I like the setup, because the next day he's supposed to go meet his brother who he defrauded of his birthright. So he has to go meet the guy who has every reason to kill him and who he thinks is going to kill him with a limp and unable to defend himself after just being like torn apart, wrestling someone all night. I like to think of I think of my 20s as a complete waste of time. I basically have nothing from my 20s that's useful in any way to show to anything. But I also think of that as kind of a grace that I got to like see it burn up now and not, keep building on all of that stuff for another 10 years and then have to realize that it's worth nothing.
Yeah, I spent most of my 20s, well, I guess late teens, early 20s in Albuquerque. And I think it was such a removed part of my life that is, and how many mistakes I made there.
Mm.
And because I moved here from San Antonio, where all my family is, everybody is, uh, in my senior year of high school, because I was kind of spiraling in high school. And then it was like, look, I thought I just hit the easy button, the restart. Let me just complete change of scenery. I can just completely
Right.
redefine who I am. And I got there and it was like, oh, there's sin here too. Okay. That's like, you ever watch The Wire? You ever see The Wire?
I never seen it.
God, it's a freaking good show. There's this part where this kid is talking to, it's these drug dealing kids in Baltimore, and they're all just, it's the whole thing. And they're on the corner. It's The Corner. The Wire started from a miniseries on HBO called The Corner. It was actually a book written by this guy, David Simon, called, he was a reporter for the Baltimore Sun on following the homicide beat in Baltimore. And so he wrote a book called Homicide, and just about his experiences riding with the cops all the time and stuff, and so what he saw and everything, how the police worked, how the drugs worked and everything. And he wrote a book called Homicide, true crime like thing. And then that actually became a TV show. And then they made a mini series called The Corner, which is about drug dealing in Baltimore and the inner city violence and gangs and everything. And then they made The Wire after that, which is about all that, the cops and everything. But in The Wire, there's this kid, and he's talking to somebody, and I forget all the details, but he said, I was in this life, working the corner, doing his drugs, all these things, and it got bad, and my mom sent me to live with my grandma or somebody in Cleveland or something. I forget where, from Baltimore to like Cleveland, and for a fresh start, to get me out of this environment, to get me, and they're like, well, so you're here. What happened? And he said, they got a corner in Cleveland.
That's right.
It's like, oh man, you can't. Oh gosh, like you can't escape that. It doesn't matter. Like sin is sin. It's all over.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I thought. That's what I thought my senior year. It was like, let me just move, and then it's like, oh, hang on, this is like.
They got girls here too.
Yeah, right. They got all this stuff here too. I was like, okay, dang, like this isn't gonna be as easy as I thought. It was just like complete restart. And but anyway, so like, and I just think about like all my time, my first year of college there, and just like, oh my god, and just like, I mean, so much, but it's like, man, that's all like out in the deserts of Albuquerque and stuff, and it's like I don't know or talk really to anybody there, and nobody I know. I have literally no reason to ever go back there, and it's like, man, was I kind of like removed? Spent some time in the desert to like, you know what I mean? And then like, as you said, kind of a grace of like,
right,
being able to piss away a lot of my 20s there.
Right.
And like, kind of, okay, no one's going to see that,
Yeah.
So I didn't wreck anything here with anybody I know and have real roots at, So
it's funny, man, the way we think about that. Like a change of scenery is going to change everything. We don't realize like you're carrying the sin inside of you. Like you're the problem, not the area. It's you.
Yeah. Well, it's like that idea of like guard your heart, or be watchful of your heart. It's like that means out in.
Right.
we think we're on this like fortress, and with the arrows and guards are pointed out. No, they're pointed in to your heart, because that's the enemy. That's what's causing you to sin. And that's what gets removed and changed, right? If your eye caused you to sin, pluck it out. If your arm caused you to sin, cut it off. Well, your eyes and arms don't cause you to sin. Your heart does. And that is what's plucked out. That is what's gouged out and cut out and replaced with a malleable heart that can be transformed to Christ. So, but yeah, that's, it's your actions and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's just so funny. The idea of, I never heard it put in those terms before, because we just call it hypocrisy. But that idea of like your functional versus your official, like, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, our official can be so spot on, but our functional is like completely different.
And it's funny that if you don't get that, if you don't realize that early, that's when you see it play out in like the big public fall from grace.
Yeah, I've been listening to the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast. Have you listened to that?
Haven't heard it at all.
Definitely should. It's very interesting, especially in this kind of, house that Driscoll built, kind of
Right.
culture we find ourselves in of this
Yeah,
reform,
yeah.
thing. It's really interesting. I think they do a pretty piss poor job of analyzing it and stuff because they're not coming. There's no scripture. They're not refuting and rebuking him or anything with scripture.
Right.
It's we talked to this social psychologist about dictator and abuse and bullying. It's like, okay, great. Is what Driscoll did biblically wrong? That's never answered. That's never
Right.
asked. That's
The
never
problem
even
is
asked.
problem is not that he's a sinner. The problem is he's a bully.
Yeah, but by what standard?
Right.
That's what's never addressed. It's like, well, we talked to this professor of psychology and trauma and stuff. I was like, okay, and what standard did he have? You know what I mean? Like they had some chick go to Mars Hill for like 2 years and give like an analysis and report of his behavior and leadership style and all these things. She's not even a Christian. It's like, well, what are we gauging this on? What are you talking about? We know the world calls this bigoted and bully and abusive and stuff like that. What does the Bible say about what he's doing or what the church is doing? And let's not say he doesn't have his faults. He definitely, I think, execution was definitely wrong on a lot of things. But overall, what he's saying unbiblical. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like about men and women, about society, about family, about a lot of things. What is he saying? Because they're kind of just taking it as like the world takes it of like, well, this hurts a lot of people's feelings. It's like, but that doesn't mean it's abuse.
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting though. It's very interesting. It's done by Christianity Today, which
says a lot and not a lot.
Woke Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, after you shill for another podcast, it's not our.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I wanted to run this by you. So I'm reading City of God by Augustine. This fat buffet of a book.
I was at Barnes and Noble and I saw they had a copy of The Shining, and I was like, oh, after you finish that, you can do this light reading too. Just read this other 7,000 page book.
I read The Shining.
Of course you did.
Yeah, that's a good book. It's really good. No, but yeah. So you should read this. It's actually not bad. It's broken up into 2 parts with like 15 to 25 books, like books sections, but they're like 80 to 100 pages each section.
Okay,
so you can just you can just kind of sprinkle it in. It took him like 10 years to write this whole thing. So it's like, it's not exactly like you forgot what he said before. But yeah, so I thought for each podcast, maybe we can kind of go through some sections of a book of City of God, because I think this is a really crucial book to read, because this is kind of Augustine's musings on the fall of Rome, and kind of seeing it crumble, and him kind of dealing with that as far as like, okay, well, what does that mean then? As far as like the city on the hill and the light, Rome was the light, and the darkness, and the darkness overcame that light. And so there's like the city of man and the city of God, and that's what he's really recognizing is like, look, Rome can fall, and that doesn't do anything to the city of God and what Christ has established on earth. I think that's really important for us to remember as Americans, the new Rome, right? Like, oh, we got to save America. It's like, do we?
The new eternal city.
Right. And so it's like, okay, America could fall tomorrow, and that wouldn't do anything to the city of God, right? To the Christian, to the church, to the gospel in the world,
the true nation of Israel.
Right. And so, but a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people think America is like the promised land, and this is it. And it's like, maybe not. Maybe America is a blip on human history of, of the gospel conquering the world, and it's not going to happen to America. Maybe had some good ideas, but moved on or whatever. And so that's kind of what Augustine is talking about, kind of with the city of God and the city of man and Rome and the church and all those things. But yeah, so I just want to kind of go through some sections on this. He says, so this is from book 1. It says, thus the wicked under pressure of affliction execrate God and blaspheme. The good in the same affliction offer up prayers and praises. This shows that what matters is the nature of the sufferer, not the nature of the sufferings. Stir a cesspit and a foul stench arises. stir a perfume, and a delightful fragrance ascends, but the movement is identical. Right? So like you light a diaper on fire and you light a scented candle. It's the same action, but you're getting completely different results. So it's the nature of the thing being ignited that kind of is what comes out. So I thought that was really interesting. This next section: Christians know that the death of a poor religious man licked by the tongues of dogs is far better than the death of a godless rich man dressed in purple and linen. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Next section: Daniel also was in captivity, and so were other prophets. They did not lack the consolation of God's presence. So the God who did not desert the prophet in the belly of a sea monster did not desert his faithful followers under the domination of a people who, though barbarians, were still human. And he's talking about like the sack of Rome and like a lot of Christians and stuff that were taken. It's like, okay, God is with them in that persecution. And I think that's something we need to think about too in any sort of like persecution or oppression or whatever. It's like God's there with you. God was Jonah in the whale, in the belly of the big fish. It's like, okay, God's going to be with you when you got fired or got canceled or whatever. So this next section: but there are those who jeer at their integrity when any temporal disaster comes upon God's servants. Such people ask, "Where's your God now?" Let those scoffers tell us where their gods are when the same thing happens to them.
That's I like that. That's really good.
Pagan nations fall. Christopher Hitchens got cancer.
Yeah.
Where's your God there? I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's like some different
Where's
thing.
rationale? Like, where's science? Where's your salvation?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I mean, at least, our God has ultimate purposes and stuff.
I don't want to get weird because I'm going to drop something real heavy right before we get off. So my parents died this past month, both of them. My wife said something that was real fitting, and it kind of goes along with what we're talking about. Maybe we can end on here because it's just, whatever.
Yeah.
We were driving one day, and she just kind of came to it out of the blue, and she goes, it's kind of weird that we prayed for them to be healed, and they are. Just not in the way we thought. And I was like, that's true. And like you were saying, the same motion stirs different fragrances or whatever. And it's true. It's like the two people you look at, there are two families or whatever, and they have a tragedy, they have a death, and to one, the family falls apart. And to the other, it's like, oh, well, they're saved. Like the thought that I had is like they finished the race in the Pauline sense. Like they did it, they endured, they made it to the end. So that is going to be more prominent in the time going forward. Like you said, that thought that like, yeah, nations fall, people fall, families fall, like things fall apart, and it's okay because God is there in that, and it doesn't affect the city of God.
Right. So
yeah, that's man. When you write that, like 150, 1,500 years ago, and it just hadn't changed.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's talk about, again, official theology and functional theology. We can say all day, death, where is thy sting? But when tragedy strikes that close, our functional theology is going to play out. And that's how we're going to have processed this, And when I was talking to you, you were saying, I'm trying not to distract myself. I'm trying not to just, whatever. And I was trying to exhort you and implore, like, you're going to process this.
Right.
And you need to make sure that it's with Christ and with God.
Right.
And because it's going to be with something else. If it's not, there's no neutrality. There's no distraction. There's no not thinking about this. There's no not processing this. You're going to process this. So you have a responsibility through these times of tragedy and these rubber meets the road moments to process it in Christ. And we need to make sure that we do that. I told somebody else this as well. And they didn't really, and kind of, we're dealing with that and some confession and repentance and stuff too. But it's like, but that's true, man, because like we're going to process this, and it's going to either be with television or with, whatever, or Christ. We're going to run to Christ, and that's going to be our fortitude. That's going to be our refuge. That's going to be our safe haven that we run to in these moments, and that's going to be our reaction. But But yeah, and so I mean, it's just yeah. In those moments where we have an opportunity to glorify God through those times and know that He is enough, that He is good,
Right.
and that our hope is in Him, and heart and flesh, and our parents may fail, our family members and people we love and hold dear may fail by no means their own, by whatever, by just the frailty of life. But our hope is not in them. Our faith is not in them, and we mourn as those with hope, not in those people, not in these flesh and blood, but that in the promise that we will see them once again, and that they are with Christ, that they are healed, like you said, and that God is enough. He is our faith. He is our hope and our stay, and not in any other person and stuff. But yeah, that's when functional theology plays out.
Right.
And that's what glorifies God.
That's kind of an interesting thing too when we talk about functional versus official. Is like, if you ask me, I can go through. Let's go into John 10 and let's talk about Lazarus and let's break down what Jesus means when he says all this stuff.
Yeah.
But my wife, who's been saved for all of 3-4 years, is the one who has the insight. Like that's the true thing that's like playing out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the mouths of babes, right?
Right.
the Christian babies, can see it. Yeah, man. I mean, I think we can listen to too many hip hop reformed theologians and get caught up in that official and not really get through the functional. For sure.
Yeah. So everybody listening, that's their danger. Remember that. Take some time. I think it's Psalm 4 that talks about when you lay down in bed to search your heart in the silence and be silent. Like, really think about it and really examine yourself. Do you actually believe it? Because I think that's another thing too when we talk about that head knowledge of knowing and then the truth of believing, right? Like that's the person who says to Christ, like, I believe, but help my unbelief. Like, I know that you can do this thing, but help me believe that you will do what you promised. And
that's God providing the thing requested, right? And that's how it's going to be, because we don't have the strength, we don't have the will, the nature of anything like that. It's going to be God working through us to fulfill what He's required of us.
Right.
Basically, all things from Him.
Yeah.
Him, from Him and to Him. Right. Psalm 139. I would encourage everyone to read Psalm 139 in light of that. It's the whole "Search me, O God, and know my heart." O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Ever before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. So, I mean, this should read all of Psalm 139. It's just like, I think we should make it a regular part of our diet of scripture in that. But yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll sign it off for tonight. Yeah. But yeah, be cautious that you're not just thinking without believing. You're not hearers of the word and not doers, because I think that's a danger. We get comfortable too, especially when we don't feel like there's obvious temptation, if that makes sense, right? Like it's easier to think you're not sinning when the temptation isn't super obvious, and we don't think about all the little compromises we make every day. So
yeah, that's this book, Temptation,
right?
Really talks about opening yourself to temptation, even in something that's not a sin. Right. It's like it's not a sin to drive the girl home at night.
Yeah, right.
But
what are you setting up for?
Right. Is that what doors are you opening to temptation? So just being cognizant of that and having that wisdom and discernment.
Right.
For sure.
Cool. So until next time, 2 weeks, because I got my weeks all mixed up. So I'm gonna be gone next week, not this week.
Yeah.
So obviously. So until next time, this is the time, this is the place. We'll see you guys.
See you. Bye.